April 23, 1971. Swiss hunters agreed to return one of their fiercest competitors to the Alps, the Lynx, but on one condition. Forest warden Leo Leenert promised them a new hunting trophy in exchange: deer. The operation was called Lynx for deer. That day, 2 lynxes secretly brought from the Carpathians disappeared into the Gutschlock forest. After that, they were barely monitored at all. The first radio collars did not appear until 12 years later, and when scientists were finally able to examine what had happened, they found something, nothing like the original plan. To understand what occurred on April 23, 1971, you need to understand what came before it. The last lynx in the Swiss Alps is believed to have been killed in 1894. After that, 77 years of complete absence. The species simply ceased to exist on this land. The cause was ordinary and brutal. The species disappeared due to growing human populations, the conversion of forests into agricultural land, and logging that shrank the habitat and sharply reduced roe deer numbers, the lynx's primary prey. An additional factor was local farmers who viewed the cat as a threat to their livestock. In some regions, legends circulated that lynxes attacked children. No documented case of a human attack has ever existed, but that did not matter. Fear and competition for resources proved stronger than facts. Then the situation began to change. When large-scale logging ceased, forest cover increased and wild ungulate populations recovered sharply, recreating the right ecological conditions for the lynx's return. The niche was emptying. The predator that kept deer and roe deer populations in balance had vanished, and the forest was beginning to feel the consequences. Young shoots were being grazed, soil was being trampled, and natural regeneration was blocked. In 1962, Switzerland granted the lynx protected status under hunting legislation. In 1967, the Federal Council made its decision. The lynx would return. Here is the detail that most accounts of the Swiss reintroduction omit. The first release in the Melchtal Valley initiated a series of subsequent official and unofficial releases in the Swiss Alps and the Jura Mountains. The word unofficial in a scientific text means one thing. Some of the animals reached the mountains without state authorization and without any record being kept. Population development was not tracked at all in the beginning. Systematic research began only in 1980. 9 years after the first release, there was near total ignorance. How many animals actually went into the mountains? Official figures say that between 1971 and 1976, between 25 and 30 individuals were released into the Alps and the Jura together. But academic publications are more cautious. They report at least 14 lynxes were translocated from the Carpathian Mountains to the Swiss Alps between 1970 and 1976. The difference between 14 and 30 is those same unofficial releases that nobody recorded. Why? Because the official process was slow, bureaucratic, and ran into resistance. Enthusiasts, conservationists, and forest wardens made their own decisions. They believed in the idea more than in the procedures. The first 2 radio collar transmitters were fitted to lynxes only in March 1983 in the Bernese Oberland. 12 years after the first official release, scientists could finally see where the animals were moving. What they found exceeded the most optimistic expectations. In 1974, on the French side of the Alps, the Chablais region, naturalists record something they initially refused to believe: a lynx track in the snow. A lynx that had disappeared from the French Alps at the start of the 20th century had appeared again, on its own, without any French decision or program. The animal had crossed the border from Switzerland. It simply went where there was forest and prey. Between 1974 and 1994, France would record 70 confirmed lynx encounters, the first records in Chablais, more regular ones in the Erebus Mountains. Over 20 years, a southward progression of approximately 200 kilometers was observed. The animal simply expanded its range to where the ecology permitted. The alpine population, grown from Leenert's Carpathian lynxes, had begun filling the empty space on its own. The reintroduction in the northern and western Alps established a population that by 1981 already covered an area of roughly 4,000 square kilometers. In 10 years, from 0 to 4,000 square kilometers. But simultaneously with this triumph, a conflict was building, the very one that opponents of reintroduction had predicted. The lynx is a strictly solitary animal. A single individual requires between 100 and several hundred square kilometers of territory. According to Cora data, deer and roe deer make up 88% of the lynx's diet. An adult needs between 50 and 60 ungulates per year. As long as roe deer were plentiful, everything was fine. But in the early 1990s, the balance shifted. In the early 1990s, the regional roe deer population in the northwestern Alps had been growing after a series of mild winters. The lynx population responded by growing too. From the mid-1990s onward, the roe deer population began to be regulated again by natural winter mortality, and hunting estates also increased their culling quotas. Food became sharply scarcer. The lynx turned to sheep. Farmers were furious. They had never asked for the lynx to return. The state had brought in a predator, and now it was eating their animals. Compensation schemes existed, but they were considered inadequate and demeaning. You had to prove that a lynx specifically had killed the sheep, not a dog or a disease. That proof was hard to establish. In the late 1990s, the northwestern Alps saw a sharp drop in lynx survival rates, corresponding to a period of heightened conflict between lynxes and humans, widespread livestock losses, legal shooting of problem individuals, and deliberate illegal killings. In 1995, Swiss media published a photograph. In it, a hunter with a rifle and 2 dead lynxes. A protected species, an illegal killing. The court accepted the hunter's argument that he had found the animals already dead. Acquitted. The government recorded 49 confirmed cases of lynx poaching since the 1970s. Urs Manhart, author of the novel The Lynx, who himself worked as a volunteer alongside researchers, recounted that he was personally threatened and had his tires slashed in the winter of 2000 while monitoring animals in a valley. Illegal killings, competition with hunters for game, farmers' fears. These 3 forces did not disappear with the passage of a law. They simply went underground. And yet, it was precisely at this moment, while the conflict in Switzerland was ongoing, that the entire continent was watching its experience closely. The first successful reintroduction of a large predator in the Alps in 1971 became the starting point. Not merely inspiration, a literal template, a technical manual, proof that it was possible at all. As a result of this experience, reintroduction projects began from the 1970s onward that ended in the successful establishment of lynx populations in France, Slovenia, the Czech Republic, and Germany. Each of these countries learned from Switzerland's mistakes and successes. They took the method. They took the animals. Literally the animals. Between 2016 and 2020, Cora translocated 8 lynxes from the Swiss Jura Mountains and 4 from northeastern Switzerland to the Palatinate Forest in Germany. Swiss lynxes, grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the very same Carpathian animals that Lynert released in Melchtal, now inhabit the forests of Rhineland-Palatinate. Thuringia wrote directly to its Swiss partners, saying they provided a template for lynx reintroduction and similar conservation projects. The scale of this acknowledgement becomes clear in a single number. Between 1971 and 2018, 16 lynx reintroduction attempts were made in Central Europe. Successful population establishment occurred in only 5 cases. The rest either disappeared or remain unconfirmed to this day. Switzerland was among those 5, and that is precisely why everyone looked to it, and not to the others. But the template transmitted not only success, it also transmitted a structural problem, the same one that nobody had anticipated in 1971. 2024, a camera trap in the Jura Mountains, on the border between Switzerland and France. A lynx steps into the frame. Cora specialists look at the image and stop. It has no ears, not frostbitten, not injured, simply it never grew. A congenital abnormality, the consequence of inbreeding. A lynx without ears is a sign that the population lacks enough individuals to maintain genetic health. According to the Cora Foundation, it shows that too few animals were introduced in the 1970s. And here is where the paradox of this entire 50-year project emerges. All Swiss lynxes descend from approximately 20 founders. Both populations, the alpine and the Jura, are considered to be under serious threat, as the gene pool is too small and therefore fragile. In the Jura, inbreeding is already showing visible consequences: heart murmurs in juveniles, low birth weight, sharp drops in fertility. An estimated 343 independent lynxes in Switzerland, according to the Cora Foundation. 343 animals, all blood relatives. For 50 years, they have been breeding in isolation, the alpine population separately, the Jura population separately, and now the northeastern population separately as well. There is virtually no genetic exchange between them because motorways, settlements, and the absence of ecological corridors block migration. The earless lynx became a symbol. Its photographs circulated through scientific journals and conservation publications, as evidence that success had proven more complicated than it first appeared. But before speaking about the crisis, it is necessary to say what the Lynx actually did over 50 years. The lynx is present year-round and eliminates sick and weak animals with far greater precision than a hunter, stabilizing wild populations more sustainably. The result? Fewer browsed saplings, healthier ungulate populations, better natural forest regeneration. And all this happened without a single shot fired. Where the lynx appeared, young trees had the chance to grow. Roe deer and chamois became more cautious, remained in one place less, and did less damage to the same hectare of forest. It was the cascading effect of a predator that had been absent for so long. The lynx is also an indicator species. Its presence shows that the ecosystem is functioning and that environmental conditions are sufficient to support a stable population. Its absence is a warning signal. Switzerland today is the only country in the alpine region with a large, continuous lynx population, but only 18,100 square kilometers. Less than 10% of the entire alpine range of 192,000 square kilometers are permanently occupied by lynxes. The rest of the mountains are empty because there is no connectivity between the populations. Autumn 2020, a Swiss referendum. 51.9% of Swiss voters voted against changes to hunting legislation that could have made it easier to manage predatory animals. A majority against, not because they want to kill lynxes, but because on the question of large predators, the interests of farmers, hunters, conservationists, and city dwellers do not align, even in the country that was first to return this predator. November 2024, Canton of Graubünden. On November 16th, a hunting warden shot 3 lynxes, an adult male and 2 juveniles, mistaking them for wolves at night. A compensatory project, the release of 2 new animals, was suspended under pressure from the hunting lobby. 3 animals, from a population where every individual is genetically irreplaceable. And that is not the leading cause of death. Of the 346 lynxes that were autopsied in Switzerland between 2000 and 2022, in 183 cases, more than half, the cause of death was a collision with a vehicle. The proportion of road deaths is rising as the population expands into new territories closer to human settlements. The lynx has returned to the mountains, but the mountains are now crossed by motorways. The greatest threats to the lynx in Switzerland are illegal killings, vehicle collisions, and habitat fragmentation. Additionally, there is the slow but relentless danger of genetic exhaustion. Given the current genetic situation, the long-term survival of the Swiss lynx population is not guaranteed. That sentence is written officially by the Cora Foundation, the very organization that has monitored every animal in the mountains for 50 years. The country that achieved the impossible in 1971 has still not decided what it wants from the lynx in 2024.